All right, everybody. Hello, hi there. My name is Nathaniel, and welcome to uh, our webinar tonight on living with an empty nest, preparing for an empty nest as you get ready to start post-secondary school with T1D in the family. I'm the Pep Talks facilitator for DHF. I've also been living with type 1 diabetes since 2005. Um, and I'm really excited to be joined by our incredible panelists. Before we hop in, though, I'll do a quick land acknowledgement. The land acknowledgement is written from the perspective of folks living in Toronto because that's where DHF is based. However, as you see at the bottom, you're welcome to go to native-land.ca to learn more about the territories that you live on if you're from different parts of the country. So, Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee, and that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. And subsequent indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. And like I said, please check out native-land.ca. It's a really cool resource online. And now I'm going to toss it over to my colleague and co-moderator, Heather, to do some just background information about DHF.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining us. I'm not sure who's familiar with DHF and who's new to the organization. So just want to give you a bit of information about the programs that we offer. I know for most of you, the scholarship program probably won't apply, but if we have anyone here with kids going into grade 12, you can look into applying for the scholarship this coming January. It's only for kids who are transitioning from high school into post-secondary school. We also have our Hope Connects Peer Support Program, which was developed to support youth as they're transitioning to post-secondary school. So we have a one-to-one peer mentorship program, and both Alan and Raphael and Arlene's children are mentors in that program, phenomenal mentors. And it's just additional support for your kids as they're starting post-secondary school, someone who's been there and knows how to navigate it with diabetes, making sure that you're prioritizing your studies and your health and your sort of mental well-being as well. We also have an online Discord server, which I know is a foreign language to a lot of parents, but if you like kids know about them, they can look it up and connect with people online there and ask questions about post-secondary or type 1 diabetes, and just kind of makes them feel a little bit less alone with it. On our website, we also have a huge amount of online downloadable resources to sort of help you through the transition. And we also run our Pep Talks Caregiver Support Program, which offers monthly webinars and drop-in spaces to come and talk with other parents who have kids with type 1 diabetes. If you go to www.diabeteshopefoundation.com, you can find out about all the programs, and highly encourage the mentorship program because I know it's a very impactful one for kids to get involved with. Now I will toss it back to you, Nathaniel.
You, Heather. And also, Heather and I are going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar that we're not addressing yet, please just pop them in the chat and we'll make sure to get to them. I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who's joining us from across the country, coast to coast. Very excited to have you all here. Thank you for being part of this conversation, and a massive heartfelt thank you to our panelists who are joining us, who have lived experience with the issue that we're talking about today, which is how do you prepare for when diabetes suddenly isn't solely your responsibility, and diabetes leaves the house for most of the day. And so I'd love to introduce these people, but I feel like they would do a much better job than I would. So I'm going to start with Rana first, if you wouldn't mind just telling us your name, the age of your child or children with T1D, and what schools they went to, what they're studying. That'd be great. So we'll start with Rana.
My name is Rana. I have 3 diabetic children. One, he's at age of 27. He graduated from York. Was it right, Nathan? York,
yes,
right?
Yes, York.
With business. And I have identical twins, are diabetic as well. They are at the age of 19 in their 3rd year of university or college, you call it whatever you want, at Sheridan. They're studying, the first is studying Bachelor of Computer Science, and the other one Bachelor of Accounting. So these are the diabetic ones. I started the diabetes journey 20 years ago. My first was diagnosed 20 years ago. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'll pass it over to Arlene and Rafi now.
Hi, everyone. Arlene and Raphael. We're in Thornhill, Ontario. Our son, Daniel, he'll be 22 in a couple of weeks. He got diabetes when he was 13 years old, and he has finished a health sciences program at Queen's. He's currently in a year where he's working and expanding his experience so that he can apply to medical school here in the States and the great big world beyond, because it's a difficult process these days. And he's, like I said, very involved with the Diabetes Hope Foundation and very inspired and motivated to be part of this group. So thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you. And next, Alan.
Hi there, I'm Alan. I'm speaking to you from London, Ontario. My daughter Lane is 20 years old. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes just about a week before her 7th birthday. She is just about to go into her 3rd year at the University of Guelph in the One Health program. And we've had the joy of having her home this summer for the first. She's been a camp counselor out at Camp Huronda the last number of years, but this summer she decided to stay in London, and she's been a food educator for a local not-for-profit organization. It's been a great fit for her, and just based on her program and her diabetes and everything as well. So feeling a little bit melancholy about having to say goodbye to her again in the next week or so as she heads back to Guelph.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Welcome, everybody. Again, a huge thank you for being a part of this today. We're going to get started with some of our prepared questions, the first of which I'm going to throw over to Arlene and Rafi to lead, and then invite Rana and Alan as well to join in as well afterwards. So this time of transition is a lot of worrying about the unknown. What's the next day going to be like? The next week going to be like? The next month going to be like? So, Rafi, Arlene, what was the first week like when Daniel went to school and when diabetes left the house? And yeah, could you please speak on that?
Yeah, sure. We had to think back a little because it seems like it does become such a fluid process. So I wanted to give everybody that up front, that it will become fluid for you. It did for us. I think the first week, I mean, what was nice for us is that his first year of university was actually during COVID. So he was home the first year of university. He didn't have that residence experience. So when we were preparing for residence, we had actually, the one thing we did was get him accommodations to have a room of his own so that he could deal with lows on his own, or if he was up or needed to change his pump or pod and have the sleep he needed. None of those things happened because of COVID. So when he did move into 2nd year, he had a roommate. And what helped us the first week was that roommate, and I'm sure you could do the same thing with somebody in residence, the RA or the roommate, was that roommate agreed to have a little sit down with Daniel and hear what, diabetes was for him and what that meant to be with a roommate who has diabetes. And that person agreed to be one of his follow me trackers on the app, so that if he did have a low, and my son wasn't waking up, he would be able to, give us a call. He was willing to share his text, phone number with us. We did need to call him once or twice when we did get an alert and we didn't see Daniel responding to it. And he was fantastic. He went, knocked on my son's door, made sure everything was okay. And then, things got a little settled more from there. So that was sort of our introduction to letting him go the first week. But I think having that, knowing that another person was there that really cared about his sugars and following on this app and taking that seriously and letting us call, when needed. We didn't do it that often, but it was really, really helpful. And then, as we got Daniel settled, we were using Diabetes Express to have his supplies shipped right to him. So there was that organization with my son to make sure that he was there or knew where those products would be received, getting his insulin and all his supplies. And then slowly, we started to add in one more responsibility for my son to sort of do on his own, and then let us know how it went. So at the beginning, I would say, okay, you got to start having meetings with your endocrinologist by yourself, it's going to be a Zoom meeting. You make the appointment, let me know when you made the appointment, you know? So it was sort of like check, cross, so that by the end of the first year, he was, you know, going across to the pharmacy across the road if he needed to, because the insulin diabetes express didn't arrive, knowing how to show his university health plan along with our health plan, and navigating how to use those things together. So it was a little bit piece by piece the first year, always reminding him that, okay, let's learn how to do this now. We're going to do this the first time together. And then, you know, we want you to take the lead and let us know how it went. And that went pretty well. I mean, I think for us, the big thing was just all the alarms going off and not knowing necessarily what was going on, and if he was waking up, and if he was treating them, because he was in Kingston, and that's 3 hours from where we live. So that was a little stressful. And he actually told us, you have to trust me that I've got this, and that, you know, my roommate knows and I know. And if something really, you know, happens, I will call you and I will tell you. So I think the biggest thing that helped my well-being, because that is one of the questions you asked, Nathaniel, was to turn off the alarm. I had to turn it off. He kept it on, and I had to turn it off. And then, you know, my kid pulled through. He really did rise to the challenge of knowing what our plan was, knowing, you know, how many days in advance he needed to give us to order supplies for him, or what that looked like when, you know, after the end, what you had to do to get your labs done for the endocrinology meetings. So it took a little bit of back and forth and checking in. And then Daniel, we said, let us know when you feel you've got this. And I would say by the end of first year, he's pretty self-caring right now. He still talks to us about his sugars and, you know, management and where we can go from here in terms of control. But it's him and his team now that are really managing it. The endocrinologist, his dietitian is key, and him. And we're sort of being kept in the loop now, which is so different when you're like writing how many carbs is on the lunchbox. Like, okay, this is 15 carbs if you want to eat this, but this is 10, you know, like it's so different to go from that mode to him just letting us know how it's going. But yeah, you know, it was a little bit at a time, passing the responsibility over, I'd say a little bit at a time, and him checking back with us and saying, I did this. I didn't know how to do this. Can we talk about that? And then we moved it forward. So.
Yeah, I was just going to add, from the beginning, we were very big about making him feel that we are a team. So, you know, for us, it was very important that he feels that he's not going through diabetes alone. Of course, at the end of the day, he's taking the brunt of it, but that there's a whole team, like we as a family are a team going through it together. And there was a lot of conversation before he left home that we are still a team. You know, yes, there's going to be transition, but even if he's remote, we are here. There's a team continuing to support him. So, you know, part of being a team was having continuous conversations. You know, when he was home, it was several times a day for different reasons. And yes, maybe the frequency is different, maybe the topics are different, but that dynamics was still there. It was really important to us. So WhatsApp was really important. And I would also say that, you know, as part of those conversations, you know, with Night Scout and all that, a lot of the conversations transitioned more, you know, it was really important to reduce the pressure. Like stuff happens when you're in university. There's parties and you're invited and you didn't expect to, but everybody gets a pizza and maybe you want a slice. And then, you know, the patterns are not always perfect. And for us, it was important not to be too negative on these things, but always kind of push forward towards, okay, what happened? Why? What do you think you can do to reduce the frequency of this? So the conversation, it's just pushing the responsibility within reason more towards him and making him feel sort of that he has agency over the situation, as opposed to us kind of monitoring him like the police and always kind of only noticing the negative part. So there was a lot of sort of working on the language we use, because at the end of the day, he's remote and we can't really control it. So we have to, as much as possible, make him feel like he's in control and that he wants to take on responsibility. So, you know, we felt at least that if the conversation is too negative, too frequently, it doesn't help him. So,
and I'll just the last two things I'll just add was we also asked him to have a bit of patience with us. If we seem to be asking, too many questions, we just asked him for a little bit of patience. It's new for us to be letting go of not doing the day-to-day. And this is a panel and we're talking about university, so I'm going to be really honest. I told him, obviously there's drinking and I would really love to know when you're drinking. Like, I'm not going to tell you don't drink, but if you drink, I would like to know. I'd like to know. And he always shared with us if he was having a drink or two. And that gave me a lot. I didn't, yell at him. I didn't say, what are you doing? You shouldn't be drinking. I just said, thank you for telling me. And it really gave me a lot of peace. And he's still open about it to this day. So that really was if that works for another child, I'm passing it out.
Thank you. No, these practical tips are exactly what we're here for. So thank you, folks. And I feel like just the conversation that you were bringing also speaks a lot to this. The second question I was going to ask you about letting go and what that looks like, because there's the philosophical side of letting go, but more specifically, like letting go of that day-to-day management, of that writing down on the lunchbox, of your control. And you've touched on this aspect of scaffolding, of like bit by bit, building up interdependence between you and your child, so that as a team, like you were saying, diabetes is managed and gradually you peel that scaffolding away. And now Daniel's doing it all on his own. So I'd love to open this up to Rana and Alan as well, about this idea about letting go and yeah, what does that inspire you to think about?
Well, I know from our perspective, we had a really, really good conversation with Lane in the weeks leading up to her, heading off to residence for first year. And rightly or wrongly, we made the decision that we weren't going to track her blood sugars remotely. And so that was a huge letting go experience from our perspective, because since the age of 7, you'd hear the low alerts go off at night or the high alerts go off at night. And I'm a pretty light sleeper. And so, you just step to the bedroom next door and you're there to be able to help out in whatever way is needed. And so all of a sudden, we'd made this sort of family decision, and it was based on what Lane's wishes were more than anybody else. We made this decision just to sort of sever that tie, and we weren't getting the low alerts or the high alerts during those early weeks of her off at university. And she was in a single room in residence as well, which made us pretty anxious. But just going back to what was discussed before, I mean, it all comes down to sort of just communication and trust, and just knowing and trusting that Lane was making, sound decisions. And there were other people in her residence wing who had been made aware of her diabetes, and certainly her resident Dawn was aware. So we knew that there were people kind of looking out for her. But that was the biggest step for us, was just having zero idea of what her blood sugars were doing over the course of the day and the night.
Thank you. Yeah. And Rana, your children studied from home, right? So I guess letting go probably took on a different color for
Yeah,
you. Can
kind
you speak
of.
on that?
They stayed with me. They stayed at home, but I don't see them maybe once in a week because they work and they study. So sometimes they will come home around 12 a.m. and I work. I wake up every day at 6 a.m. So it's kind of we talk with the phone, texting, we chat. So you can say that as if they are just partially away. So I want to first admire you guys of the way of connection with your son. and with your daughter, Alan. It's very important to have this relationship with our children, friend relationship, because when they trust us and they feel that we trust them, they open up for us. So that's my advice for everyone, and that's what helped me. That, you know, my son now, he's 27 years old. He would call me from work. You know what happened yesterday? I had high blood sugar. I can't explain it. Can we analyze that together?
Mm.
So if you start building up this relationship with your children, it's going to be there forever. So for me, I started this journey before 2 or 3 years before they go to university. So I started monitoring them from away, allowing them go to their appointment, and I do Zoom call with them or video or only on the phone. So I was on and off since the age of 16 with them. So at the age of 18, I felt more safe for for everyone. And to be honest, except Omar, because Omar has more than one issue. He's diabetic and he has a rare disease called Addison's, and that Addison disease works against diabetes. So if his Addison, if he has any, do you know anything about that, Arlene? Do you know what's Addison's? So it's you don't have cortisone. He doesn't have cortisone in his body. It's an autoimmune disease, and when you don't have cortisone, it affects your blood sugar levels. So if the cortisone is low, the blood sugar would go very low, and if the cortisone is high, the blood sugar would go very high. So that was the challenge for us, and it took me, I would say, until a few months ago, I was still on top of everything with him. But now I reached to a point that he's responsible for everything. So each case depends on, each child has his own case. But I believe that we should be prepared for that few years before they start, just to make sure, because they're still with us, right? You still know their schedule until 18, until age of 18. Now I don't know anything about their schedule. They are free to do whatever they want. So we talk on the phone. I have only Omar on my follow-up. Ahmed and Muhannad, I don't have them. So they will share with me their data every couple of days, sometimes once in a week, but they're really doing really good. I always talk with their friends about everything, all their friends. I have good connection with my children's friends, so I tell them everything. I call them, they call me, they did this, something happened. Sometimes, don't worry about that. They spent few nights outside with friends. Also, they know about their cases. So, yeah. So they're with me, but you can say that I don't see them only on Sunday. We meet on Sundays.
That's wonderful though, and I think the overall vibe that I'm getting from all of our parents here is that it takes one gradual building up of um, support systems and stripping away the support systems, then also community, whether it's Daniel's roommate or friends of Lane or friends of your sons as well, Rana, that you don't uh, you don't just shed responsibility, you share it, and that's really beautiful. We did have a question just because we've been talking about following, and we had Kim was just asking about sort of being tossed back and forth about are you being overbearing in following, or the fact that you're so far away and that information is available. So I guess we've talked a bit about it, but that process and that conversation about how following is going to work and when is it going to happen, is it going to be all the time or part time or none of the time? I'm curious if we could get into the nitty gritty of that, if anybody has any specific thoughts.
For Daniel, I see someone mentioned Life 360. So we have our kids on Life 360 as well. And I said, it's not because we said it. happen. And it's a useful, it doesn't mean we are wondering, we're not going to be asking, why are you there? Why are you there? It's just, I need to know if God forbid something happens, and we have to have that information. So we are avid fans of using Life 360. It kind of gives us ease when they're coming back and forth from school. And I think that's a great compromise. And so if that helps your child know that there's many other kids on Life 360, Kim, then maybe that'll help. It's given us a lot of ease. And we let our kids see where we are on Life 360 too. In terms of tracking, and I can really, really relate. I was a registered dietitian in the diabetes unit. I worked at, in a diabetes unit, and I know how important those numbers were to us, and the A1C and keeping it in a certain, and those things we couldn't, it was hard for us to let go of those numbers because we always were so focused on his hemoglobin A1C in terms of what that meant down the road. But we did pull back from the tracking because his emotional health was suffering for it. We didn't want him to think that was the only thing that we worried about. And it was becoming a little too intense for our son to only talk about, you know what it means if your sugars aren't in range. And you're only in range this percentage of the time. And it says here this, what happened there. For him in particular, it didn't work to pick it apart and analyze. I love that, Rana's son came to her and said, can we break that down? And when Daniel comes to us, we'll definitely look at it. And he usually does that when he's looking at ratios and changing things with his settings. Then he'll get a second opinion from us. But as far as tracking and checking in with what happened, why did you have that low? What do you think happened? He says it was just stressing him out too much while adapting to all those other things, school clubs, group studying, making sure, he had all of the responsibilities in place, groceries, cooking, all that kind of stuff. And so he basically said to us, I have to ask you to you can't track the way we did at home. It's not working for me, mentally, emotionally. And so that's when we sort of said, you're right, you have to ease back. I'm going to stop following your highs and lows on Night Scout, and we know you've got this. And so but like a therapist said to me once, what's new is so intense. And with 6 weeks, your bubble of tolerance seems to be able to manage it so much more. Right? Every 6 weeks, you manage something new. It doesn't feel as intense as it was. So yeah, with about 6 weeks, every 6 weeks or so, a new change felt so much more doable than it does when you're immediately thinking about doing it.
Thank you. And it sounds like that conversation comes a lot from this idea that like once the decision is made of like we're going to follow that, you don't have to stick with it, that as needs and boundaries change, then you talk about it, you adjust. So that's a really valuable lesson. Thank you. Sorry, Rafi, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I fully support.
Great. We have a question that I think comes up a lot, and in fact, this was in our intake survey for our audience. We asked what something you want to hear about, and the biggest thing was lows at night, and it just sort of worst case scenarios. What do I do? They're far away, and I feel like that's where so much of that immediate intense stress can come from. So Alan, I was wondering if you could talk to us about emergency plans, and did you and Lane have an emergency plan, and or what happened when things went wrong?
Luckily, touch wood, nothing has gone wrong. I mean, there were situations certainly when Lane was at home where there were some scary lows at night, and Yvette, Lane's mom, and I were really happy that we were around, to sort of nip those in the bud and to be able to kind of support. But we didn't really, because we weren't following her glucose, readings overnight. We just needed to trust that, what Lane was doing was, sensible and in her best interest. Certainly, if she was feeling unwell, if she went through periods where, she had the flu, or, at one point in her first year, she ended up with strep throat. we were touching base with her a little bit more frequently. But we're very, very lucky in that, you know, Lane isn't a drinker. And I don't think I'm saying that as sort of a naive parent who, you know, doesn't fully understand what her behaviors are. She legitimately just is not into sort of alcohol or drinking or late night. Lane is a competitive runner. And she's very, very routine oriented. So we knew even with her going off to university that she was going to stick with most of the routines that she had, you know, prior to heading off to university. I think probably the only sort of emergency plan that we had in place was you know, a conversation with the resident on Lane's floor, and actually the resident Dawn's room was next door to Lane's room, and so we were pretty lucky in terms of that. Lane gave her floor mates and the resident Dawn sort of a quick sort of lesson on how to administer glucagon. So that we knew that anybody on that residential floor at least would have a familiarity with what could happen with Lane, and potentially could administer the glucagon if required. And Lane was also fortunate enough that she did have some very, very close friends who were in the same residence building as her. So there was a constant checking in with friends who would just be knocking on Lane's door and just sort of checking in with her, making sure that all was good. And so we were, I think Yvette and I never ever really felt that Lane was particularly isolated in residence. And we always felt that somebody was sort of keeping an eye on her. But we didn't really have a sort of a formal emergency plan. And again, I mean, rightly or wrongly, you know, for whatever reason, that was a decision that we made. And I think we were probably fortunate in that first year of university that in residence that there wasn't an emergency that we had to deal with.
That's a relief. And good to have that network in place just in case. Though.
Yeah.
Arlene, you answered this in the chat, but I'd love to just get it out loud for folks who are joining us after the fact. But the question about when you mentioned earlier about texting Daniel's roommate to go knock on the door, and how long did you wait before calling to check?
Yeah, well, I gave it about 15 to 20 minutes, because I was looking at the numbers going lower and lower, and I just thought, okay, like 15 minutes, it's usually when you hear the alarm, you see 15, 20 minutes, you might see a little slow rise in that sugar, but I was seeing the opposite direction. I thought, I'm going to see if he's asleep. I'm just going to, 20 minutes is good. But that actually only happened twice, because I think that was motivation enough for Daniel to say, okay, let me figure out why I'm having these lows at night, adjust things, and then that didn't happen again. So I think it kind of motivated him to not have his roommate have to wake up at 2 a.m. and knock on the door.
Right.
But maybe it was a personal growth right there for everybody.
Oh, that's wonderful. And what was Daniel's response in terms of having you text his roommate? Was there any pushback there?
Daniel's very chill. Thankfully, he does not get upset at us. He's like, no, I totally understand, but I was awake. I wasn't near the phone. Like he doesn't get upset at that kind of thing. And again, we asked him for that kind of patience. But he did say, I want you to trust me. I've got it. Like, I hear the alarm. I've got it. I'm handling it. Don't worry. So I said, okay, if you feel like maybe just texting me then and saying, I'm on it. If it's a sugar under 3, I would love that. And sometimes he did, and sometimes he didn't. But it would make me feel better when he did. Like, I know I'm treating. Bye. I love you.
That's sweet. That's really sweet.
Small mercies.
That's what I usually do. Yeah, I always ask them to just text us. I'm on it. That's fine. I'm not calling. I won't do anything. Just let me know that you're okay. Yeah. So I won't call everyone and try to find what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't think, I mean, if you need that in the beginning and there's a roommate that's willing to do it and once or twice, I mean, sometimes that's a lesson in and of itself to go through that experience and see what the other side looks like. So there's no right or wrong here, but it's just what we decided to do. And in the end, it helped Daniel sort of reassess, you know, why are my sugars going low anyway? So instead of just having the low, let's reminder, oh yeah, I can deal with this. I can look at patterns. So there's always something silver lining.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they want to share about sort of emergency planning or planning for the worst, or just safety when away?
Well, I want to share, I don't think anyone would need it. Maybe I knew about that because of, again, my son Omar has two autoimmune diseases. So I never knew that we can talk to the university and the security there can have their photo and know that this child has a special case. So God forbid if he was in a gym by himself, or if he was, let's say, sometimes they stay until 11, 12 at night there in the school and no one is there. They will know that he has a special case, and they will try to find him if he's, or if he's, if I call the college, I said, I don't know where he is, they will find him for me. And everyone will be, they will study his case and they know about that. And that I just knew that a few months ago. So I would like to share that with everyone. So we can do that from the first year. If the child has, let's say, if he was newly diagnosed, if he is still, he's not, he, maybe some children have, they don't accept their case and they don't care or whatever. So we have the services in the universities and we don't know about it. So there's a special need or there is a disability office in the university. You can go talk to them and they will accommodate the child with whatever he needs. So yeah, that was a relief for me, honestly.
I hadn't heard of that. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And I also had a locker for him. I have all the emergencies he needs. If he is low, he needs to take two types of shot, cortisone shot and glucagon. So I have those. He carries them on his fanny pack, and I have another set in the university that in his school, whenever he needs anything happen, his friends knows. They all know about that. So they can access his locker and use his stuff. So, and the security as well, they know that. So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point because I know my son started going to different gyms, the boxing club and different, and he went and let the different owners and facilitators know, here's who I am, here's my fanny pack, here's what's inside that you need to know. So that's a good point. I didn't know that they did that as well, but you reminded me.
And if he's going, my son go to the gym every day. I kept a kit in the gym. The special kit always stays in the gym because you never know what's going to happen. Maybe he forgot his fanny pack, maybe. So, and they know that where's the kit and they access it, they use it, and he'll be fine. And his cortisone shot, no one would use it. And surprisingly, that paramedic, they don't have it. So if you call 911, they don't have the cortisone shot. So that made me feel unsafe more. So I would have maybe 4 in the school, 5 at home, all my friends' houses. So maybe I will buy 20 together and I'll just spread them around. In my trip, you can't imagine, I took with me 20 shots with me. So yeah, I like to be prepared. I just don't like any surprises.
No, it sounds like we've got some great planners here with us today. Um, Heather, have I missed anything in the chat that's been zooming by while I've been?
We've had a few questions about accommodations, but the answers are all there in the chat. That's kind of the biggest stuff. And then just about getting connected to people on campus. So just the mentorship program if people are looking for it.
Awesome. Great.
There's a question: if your child's low and unconscious, are roommates allowed to give glucagon shots if there's glucagon with your child? So that you need to check with the school. I mean, his roommates aren't under any legal connection with the school, so you'd have to talk with the roommates about that. We always recommend getting Baqsimi or Baqsimi. I always get the Q and the S mixed up because it's just a nasal injection. It's a lot harder to mess it up. So that's kind of getting that, and getting a new prescription for that is great. You'd have to check if the DONs and RAs are allowed to do the shots, or if they would also need to do the Baqsimi. So just kind of check with the school first. And I always say kind of get the Baqsimi because it's a lot less scary for people who are there to help.
We've also recently found out that they're in the process of discontinuing the needle form of glucagon as well. So I think it's just going to be a nasal spray going forward, which is a lot less intimidating to teach a stranger how to use, for sure. Great. So in and around all of this this transition period, you find yourself with time on your hands when you're not being the go-to person for the T1D, or your house is literally empty because they're gone either to school or like to move there, or just gone for the day. So I'm curious, in that space, how did you folks fill your free time during the transition? And was there anything specific that you did for yourself? Rana, maybe I'll pass that to you first.
I did something for myself. Actually, yes, I did. Being with 3 diabetic children for a while, I totally, I used to feel guilty to do anything for myself, honestly, until 2 years ago. I started feeling that no, taking care of myself and having positive energy would help me to give them more. So I decided, after I tried my tricks, that supervising them from far away, and I thought I have other children other than diabetics, so everyone at home know how to deal with diabetes, and they are well educated with that. So I started asking one to lead. Today is for Heba. She's responsible for everyone, to take care of them. And I let her think that I'm not there, I will not watch anything, but I was. I tricked her. I was behind the scenes, trying to see that she's doing everything correctly, and especially with Omar if he needs to be checked at night. And she was doing okay. After I prepared everyone for that, I left for 3 nights to Niagara Falls, and I allowed them with one phone call a day. So you can call me only once, all of you, asking for everything, and give me a brief of everything happened if you need anything. And after that, you're not allowed, except if there is any emergency. Other than that, no one's allowed to call me. But if you can't deal with this emergency, don't call. You know, it was a big challenge for me, because I was, those mixed feelings that part of you is there and part of you I just want to feel that I should be prepared of leaving them their own space and let it go and all this stuff, and taking care of myself. So the first time was really hard for me, but it went very well. They had 2 huddles, and they knew how to deal with it without calling me, without doing anything. They were well prepared. And a year after, I also went for 3 days to Niagara Falls, and I really loved that, enjoyed it. And I think I start liking it. So now I'm in Jordan with my children, but they're leaving in 5 days, and I'll stay here for 10 more days with my mom, just having her for myself. So I encourage everyone to try to take care of yourself, guys. You need this space, because when you do this stuff for yourself, you learn more how to accept and deal with everything. And believe me, when they see us that we trust them, they do better.
That's wonderful. And just taking that time for you must have paid dividends. That's really impressive. Does anyone else have aspects of sort of self-care that helps you through those times?
Well, Yvette and I did a similar thing. I think probably the third week of September, when Lane was in her first year, we went up to the Bruce Peninsula with some friends for a week and just sort of rented a cottage and sort of just had some relaxation time. Probably the biggest thing for us, again, I mentioned that Lane is a competitive runner and was very, very structured in kind of the when she ate and what she ate and everything like that. And so we would always have sort of dinner at the on the table, between 5:30 and 6 p.m. Every day. And we started noticing that when Lane had moved off to university, that dinner time was a lot less stressful for us because we get home from work and we didn't feel rushed about sort of having to have dinner on the table. And sometimes we'd find ourselves eating dinner at 8 o'clock or 8:30 at night. And it was just kind of that's probably the biggest change for us, was just the less structure in our meal times, and probably slightly less focus on the type of food that we were eating as well. Not having to worry so much about having that sort of balance of carbs and proteins and whatnot as well. So after 12 or 13 years of being so regimented in that, we were able just to sort of let go a little bit and be a bit more casual about that kind of thing.
I was gonna add, I think it's important, at least for us, to kind of give yourself time in terms of adjusting, just from an emotional point of view. One of the things that I did not expect is that once Daniel was out, we just noticed how much you're just so busy in the conversations between us. We're so often about the day-to-day, the minutia, the planning and everything else, that when that suddenly wasn't part anymore, like it took a while to adjust to that, and in a sense also kind of redefine it might be a bit too much in terms of redefine the relationship, but really kind of adjust to the dynamics of what we talk about and what we focus on, in the space that it allows us to kind of focus on other things. So much so that there's almost like you become aware of how much you've been through. There's a little bit of maybe grieving in terms of, there's the initial sort of shock of going through the initial stages of realizing what your child's going to have to go through. But then you get so busy that there's never time to really process what happens over the years. And I think at the beginning, at least for me, there was a little bit of kind of, there was space to realize what we've been through, because there was never time to process that. And then they allowed a lot of space in the relationship for a lot of new stuff.
We did. We started going to the gym together every day, most days. We go to the gym together. We also took that trip. We did a big one. We did, oh my God. We went for 6 weeks to Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. Oh, we're like, okay, this is it. This is the big test. And it was great. It went really well. So yeah, you do realize, because like Rana said, it's not just diabetes. Daniel had other health issues, other child had other health issues, and it's all you seem to be thinking about, bouncing from one child. They take turns, right? So yeah, the one big thing I did when they left was declutter the house. It's great. Just declutter.
There is no better feeling than that, I say, as I'm surrounded by clutter in my apartment. Um, that's wonderful. And I think it really speaks to um the 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 positive aspects of transition, because I feel like we often get bogged down by the worry and the stress of what's about to happen. What do we not know about the future? But it is also this opportunity to grow and discover new ways to take care of yourself. I did want to speak really quickly. Um, Carol had asked in the chat about how a vast majority of T1Ds wear CGMs and pumps, but that their child has not worn either, and that it's a different path. And I know I'm not a panelist here, but I did go to university at a time prior to CGMs being a thing. And so specifically, what I think the different path there, Carol, is that you don't necessarily have access to a live stream of what's going on. Um, and so what I can tell you is what I did. I mean, I wasn't the model child. Everybody else who's talking today is talking about like these wonderkins who are wonderfully communicative. I wasn't so much, but I still got through it. I went with my blood sugar meter, and I think if I'd had more specific conversations with my parents before I left about just the information that they want to know, and just some more open communication, specifically because you don't have that option for that live update. I think just
There are certain too, but aren't there blood sugar monitors now that do send the data? At least you don't have to be connected to anything else, but your blood sugar monitor can send the data like to a shared. So like you could still see the history of the sugars, even if they're not pumping.
that does sound familiar, actually. So,
I think there are blood sugar monitors like that, where if your child's willing to switch monitors, and I'm pretty sure they existed at one point.
they do, but they kill the battery on the meter. That's
I think, to Carol, I also went to school before CGMs were even a thing. Like, that's how long ago it was. Oh. Sorry, I just froze up there.
no, you're back.
I went to school before CGMs were even a thing, and I think if your son knows what he's doing and you trust that he knows what he's doing and he's been doing it for so long, he's going to be okay. And I think it's about having those conversations and having those check-ins like everyone's talked about, and sort of having that trust. And if it's working for him, then more power to him. So.
And yeah, I guess, oh my goodness, we're almost at 8 o'clock right now. So before we wrap up, I'd like to really quick go around our panelists, and just if you could each share an aspect of advice either that you received that you found was really helpful going into the transition process, or some nugget that you wish you'd known and would like to share with the room now.
I would
can
just
pick on
say,
somebody.
oh yeah, I mean, I would just say communication and trust are the two keys. Yvette and I and Lane had all kinds of conversations in the lead up to her going off to university, and we were all sort of on the same page about sort of what Lane's expectations were of us and what our expectations were of her. And going into this, adventure, sort of all as much on the same page as you can be, is a really, really great starting point. And you just gotta, I mean, also just trust that your child is going to, make sound, smart, sensible decisions. In many cases, they've lived the majority of their life with type 1 diabetes, and they've survived through high school and survived through sports and activities and travel and all of the stuff that they've done. And so sometimes it's a little bit easier said than done, but as long as you have that line of communication, whether it's a phone call every couple of days or a text, or whatever the case may be, just openness, honestness, and honesty, I should say, will get everybody a long way, take everybody a long way.
I would add friendship and trust. If we have good friendship with them and we trust each other, they trust that we will help them and we will understand what they, if anything happen, we'll be okay with that and we'll just help them to move on. And we trust that I will say, they will reach out when they need us. That would make everyone feel happy and relieved and can move on.
Yeah.
I would echo what the other panelists said, and also that what I didn't realize, because you mentioned, was there something I didn't realize that might be useful, is that if you find your son, because you know your child a good adult and team, they're going to be doing some of the things you used to do, and I didn't even realize that. Like the dietitian would follow up with my son and say, "Let's see how your food looked this week," and make those little tweaks because I know you want to gain weight. I'm like, "Oh, she's doing what I did? Okay." I thought I was doing that. So I mean, the team was. I mean, that's his team now, and I wasn't expecting that. Like I was always blessed to have a really great sick kids team, and they were so involved with me. But then all of a sudden, I'm hearing about the team's decisions from my son, and that's a nice surprise. It's really, it gives me peace.
And I would just add, not to forget that all of this is an opportunity for growth for our kids. That of course, there's things to be concerned about and plan for and everything. But I mean, diabetes, one way or another, forces our kids to be planners and anticipators. So that's growth that maybe they were forced into, but there was a lot of positive that came out of that for Daniel. And this is just another of those opportunities for growth. So not to get too bogged down in the worries and the details, and realize that at the end of the day, obviously they're going to be okay. And this is a great experience for them.
And trust you all have the skills to problem solve as it goes along. It doesn't all have to be, instantly figured out.
I just want to add at the end of what we did today, I believe in that don't bottle up your emotions. So when we ever feel, we are parents, we have also some times that we feel that we're not okay. Just talk about it. Find a friend, find someone. It's okay to feel not okay. So I learned from this journey. And I taught myself how to deal with these emotions. And that helped me a lot with what I achieved. I'm sure that I have my mistakes. Maybe I would achieve better if when I think back, oh yeah, when I go back, maybe I would change few things or many things maybe with my family. But the most important thing that it's okay when we don't feel okay, just to express our feelings in so many ways. So the transition for our kids is not easy. Leaving them on their own is not easy. So it's okay. We can talk about it or just express our feelings. So that will help us to be better parents.
I can't think of a better note to end this on. Thank you so much, everybody. Really quick, to our attendees, we're going to be popping up a quick survey just about your experience with us here tonight. And it would be just really valuable to get your insights on what your experiences were tonight. And while you're filling that out, I'm going to give another huge thank you to Rafi, Arlene, Rana, and Alan. Thank you so much for being a part of this community and for teaching us all so much from your own experiences. So thank you so much. And thank you everybody for attending. We will be, as Heather said, posting this on YouTube at some point if you need to come back. Don't feel like you had to take notes throughout the day. Yeah, and so in the chat, the survey is in the chat. Super valuable information. If you could fill that out, please. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Take care.
Nice meeting with you all.
You
Cheers,
too.
everybody.
Bye.